Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Content Market Webinars by DICM. This webinar series, which takes place on the third Wednesday of each month, aims to share insights and experiences from experts in the industry. For this month, we will be covering kids' content in demand. My name is Carolina, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I'm a journalist and translator by trade, working as online editor for TTV News in Uruguay. Joining us today are Natalie Habib from Blink Studios, Bernd Wendell from Your Family Entertainment, and Abdulaziz Othman from Cease Animation. Natalie is the co-owner and executive producer of Blink Studios. She continues strengthening Blink Studios' positioning as the Middle East's premier film and animation studio since its inception in 2005, maintaining a globally recognized standard of quality-driven production for children and family content. Blink Studios is among the select Middle East studios that successfully delivered co-produced shows to global audiences through partnerships with the BBC, Turner Broadcasting, and Sesame Workshop. Today, Blink Studios proudly operates in Dubai and Abu Dhabi with presence in Los Angeles and Houston. Natalie, welcome to the webinar.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Carolina. It's a pleasure to be with everyone who has streamed in and is joining us today. I look forward to speaking a lot about kids' content in the region and beyond, and hopefully shed light on what is coming up next with regards to kids' entertainment and what actually is relevant and relatable to young audiences.
Perfect. Look forward to it. Now, Bernd is the Chief Operating Officer of Your Family Entertainment. He has been COO since December 1st, 2019, and on the board of directors since June 1st, 2020. He has many years of management experience in the media business through his positions at Telemunchen Group, where he developed and led the first VOD channel Filmtastic, and ProSapiens at One Group, where he was involved in strategic and M&A projects in all segments. Bernd, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Very nice to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk with you about the trends, the international trends in the kids content industry, and also what we can do as a company, as Your Family Entertainment, for our region, for your region, the Middle East, where we are already present and active with our content, have been active for a couple of years. And if you allow me just to use the opportunity to show you a quick trailer of our channel Fix and Foxy, which we our pay TV channel Fix and Foxy, which we operate in Arabic language in your region. And where we are working together with our key shareholder and strategic partners of Cartoon Studios. So let me share this quick with you, if that's okay.
مرحبا بك في كارتون جينيوس مع برامج تعرض لأول مرة حصريا وبرامج جديدة تماما للأطفال والعائلات أينما كنت من خلال حماية الطبيعة وفهم كوكبنا. واحصل على الإلهام من خلال البطل الخارق في أفلام تصلح للجميع على كارتون جينيوس. أنت معنا كل يوم من أيام الأسبوع في الساعة 9 صباحا على فيكس وفوكسي.
Excellent. So that's a quick introduction from my side. If you let me at a later stage talk a bit about our company and our partners, I think that will be helpful for our audience.
Of course, we will look forward. So finally joining us today is Abdulaziz Othman, the CEO of Cease Animation. He's a notable figure in the animation and kids content industry in the MENA region. He founded Cease Animation in 2015 to fill a regional gap in kids content supply. Cease Animation is a leading kids and family animation house, which produces a unique blend of culturally relevant entertaining cartoons with positive messages. In addition to working as the studio's managing director, he's also an animation producer and a screenwriter. Abdulaziz, welcome to the webinar.
Hi, Carolina. Welcome and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Great, well, you too. So if everyone is on board, I would like to get started with the panel discussion. I would kindly ask everyone to please keep your cameras on and your microphones on. So let's get warmed up and start talking about kids content itself and in terms of genres and trends. So Bernd, this is a question for you. Please let us know, what do kids watch today? What genres and productions do you believe catch their attention the most?
Thanks very much, Carolina. Yeah, so maybe just so people understand who we are as a company. So our company is Your Family Entertainment. We're based out of Germany. We are owner of a lot of content. So we have a big library of titles. We own 3,500 hours of content internationally, and we also have about 300 hours of content localized for the localized and available in Arabic language. So that's something we do. So we license content. We're a big distributor of content, of animation content for preschool and kids mostly. We are also an operator of TV channels internationally. It's mainly a pay TV channel called Fix and Foxy, which is a pay TV channel available in obviously German-speaking region, in the English language, but also in Arabic, which is important. We're very proud. We've been operating in your region for several years, and that's the little trailer that I showed just before. And together with we have strategic partners and key shareholders, which is cartoon studios from Hollywood. We are also in the business of developing new content, new content based on the IP that we own and based on new ideas that our colleagues and we are generating. So right now, what's really something that we are interested, I think two things we are very keenly interested in right now. So one is, I think from a general probably market perspective, gaming topics, things based on IP, based on video games that are well done, have a meaning. That's something I think that the general market is very interested in. That's also something where we are active and have started developing our initial projects related to gaming, esports. That's something we'd love to bring to the region as well. In general, and maybe the second thing is what we see as a trend from the, let's say, audience perspective, and also as a trend from the buyer's perspective. So from international buyers perspective, we can, well, we've experienced that, especially in the last, let's say, 12, 18 months, let's say the risk appetite by bigger streamers, bigger platforms has become a bit less. So they are looking more towards IP that they know, and that that's been in the market already, where they already know what kind of IP it is, what it's based on, what the values are that it's conveying and carrying, and what basically the key message and what the key values are that these IP, these intellectual properties, these characters are bringing to the table. So because that obviously lowers a bit the risk profile of new productions, which, as you know, in animation can take also a longer time to come to fruition, and also risk the financial profile, financial risk, because you're basically basing it off of an IP that's already known, that people know, that parents know, that probably kids know already. So I think these two things are probably pretty pretty important. And for us, we as a company, our mission is to really provide content that has good values, like positive values, content with a purpose, meaning family, friendship, taking care of the environment, be good citizens, be good people. But very traditional values, I think we all, across regions, across cultures, I think we would all agree on. And that's something where, we're working on and thinking about in our new developments. And that's something that I think we already can bring to the table as distributors to the regions with our content that we already have, with new shows that we're bringing to the region. And maybe one thing, if you add, I'm talking a lot, hopefully not too much. The one thing is also what we feel is about this trend of, you know, like role model, bringing good role models to the show, like that the heroes are good role models, and that we find especially important, but everywhere, but especially important in the Middle East region. So that the people are the kids or grown-ups who are good role models for the kids, who bring something to the show that kids relate to, and that parents and we feel are good things that we want our kids to watch. Now I stop talking.
It's okay. Well, so Bernd, you just mentioned a lot of trends in terms of kids content. You mentioned IP, you mentioned storyline values. Natalie, I have a question for you in regards to this. Do you believe these are the main things that buyers look for when they are searching for kids content to acquire, or which do you think are the main things that they need?
Well, it's actually not a one straight answer, right? Because at the end of the day, it all depends on the audience that you're trying to target or you are positively trying to influence. Definitely, there is a need for value-based content that is very much in tune and in line with, especially what the Middle East is trying to always advocate, right? We all know that kids today from a very young age are spending a lot of time on web-based channels, right? And social media platforms. And most probably that's where they're taking most of the content that they are spending lots and lots of hours watching. Now, the truth of the matter is us as independent producers and studios, we always seek to see how we can create a difference without alienating our audience or force feeding them something that they cannot relate to. So with what Bernd mentioned, there's definitely sort of like, I would say what we call a main understanding or main titles of what is relevant today. Esports, gaming, yes, for sure. And then after that, IP-based, of course, because it would make sense to the audience who would be far faster to relate to, and to obviously the commercial end of things of how people would actually be able to distribute and gain leverage with. And then there is obviously the third trend, which is trying to create role models, right? To try to create influencers in a positive way so that kids can relate to these things. So all of them are relevant. How they're adapted and how they are actually placed in a specific market for a specific audience is where it becomes tricky. For us as Blink, what we have done, we've been in this out of the Middle East for almost now 20 years. It's been 18 years for us. We've seen trends go up and down and leftways and sideways. The one thing that we definitely see right now is the need to relate to an audience that is interested and hungry for content, but yet an audience that is hard to impress. Okay, so it takes a lot to get to their attention. And regardless of the fact that parents do still have a role in the content selection, it's actually the children who are influencing what they want to watch. So the truth of the matter is to try and create these headline sort of genres or trends into packaged IPs that actually would attract the young as much as would make families comfortable with the children watching them. At the moment, we're developing based on these insights that we have, because when we develop IPs, we don't just go ahead and feel a gut instinct that it would work. We need to understand from people like distributors, like where Bernd is working, from networks and streaming channels, from even toy companies who play a massive role in actually financing these kind of the younger age kind of content, or even when you think of financiers in general. We do a lot of insight and research. So what we're working on today is 2 IPs that we are developing and we are going to pitch with for the coming months. And one of them is very much a cornerstone IP that is developed on the relatable character, very relatable to the Middle East region for sure, very relatable to the Eastern Hemisphere of the world. And we think will have a definite trickle effect onto the West. The second one is a very much a value-based type of IP that is targeting a specific audience that is currently missing in the paradigm of content that is being developed. And that is the tweens. We're looking at ages 11 to 14, and we're specifically talking to girls. Boys tend to spend with girls a lot of time on the gaming and the esports, but we are, for the Middle East specifically, we're focusing on the girl tween audience, and we're creating something that is not necessarily animation-based. We're actually creating a mixed feel to it, because we feel that based on the research that we saw, the time that they spend on content, it would be the right kind of format that will attract them. We hope that these two IPs actually will be delivering sort of like a tipping point to the Middle East and to their audiences in the type of content that kids could be watching, and families would be very comfortable in allowing their children to watch. So yeah, in a nutshell, I agree with Bern's trends. I just think they need to be adapted and relevant to the right audience and the right market.
Perfect. So on that note, taking into consideration that every single production needs to be adapted and developed specifically for the buyer or the platform or for wherever it's going to be airing. Abdul, I have a question for you. In this sense, how can we develop kids entertainment from the MENA region while securing ROI for these platforms and specific networks and channels or producers?
So your question again is, how can we develop content in the MENA region while what?
Yes, taking into consideration everything that Bernd and Natalie just said, what do you think are the main elements that a production needs to have so that it can secure ROI for the platforms and channels?
I believe we have a structural issue in the Middle East when it comes to kids content. Previously, it's not an established market where kids content has set budgets that everybody knows about, and the shares are split each year differently. It's an evolving market. Previously in the TV era, it was a very limited market due to limited ad spend when it comes to kids ads and kids content. Nowadays with streaming, some are taking the risk of investing in kids content, but still the image is blurry because again, there is no structured market that we can rely on. So if you're asking about what the content itself has to have, I would believe the main thing is attraction to the audience. So the more the content is tailored to the Middle Eastern audience and it's appealing to them, the better chances it have in securing distribution or reach. Because aside from which platform the content will land on eventually, if it will not generate enough energy, enough pull from the kids themselves, it will not be sustainable. So we have seen a lot in the past 10 years of trials, people trying with 10 episodes, 15 episodes, and then it stops. This is not how it works in kids content. SpongeBob is a 20 or 30 years old IP, so we need to have a sustainable model. Otherwise, we will just be doing service work and it will not live for a substantial amount of time. So it's a challenging market. It's a very challenging region. Although the opportunity is there, the kids are there. We're a young nation relatively compared to other nations in the world. Yet we have a structural challenge when it comes to the business model and how the industry is structured over here.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I definitely agree with Abdulaziz. We are the infrastructure for kids content here is yet to really be built in a solid way, so that it is integrated, so that it supports. It has support from various entities. So at this stage, we are relying predominantly on the network/streaming channels to basically come and finance a specific IP, and then hope that whatever we're developing and producing would actually gain all the audience appeal that is necessary to bring back a return on investment. However, in truth, the infrastructure should be larger, and if it actually expands and there is an invitation from the international market to start considering this, we can add more elements to that infrastructure and start inviting companies like toy companies, distributors, and financiers to come and be part of the pool of the financing and be part of the discussion and be part of this huge risk that is being taken by sort of like splitting it so that everybody has a bit of it. And then if the production, which is the studio who's holding the IP and who's producing it, has that kind of tools and empowerment, then the production would be more successful, and therefore the ROI is much bigger. So I think what we're seeing right now in the Middle East, and thankfully that we are a young market, that there is an open invitation. One has to admit that the Middle East right now is undergoing a very positive tipping point, right? There's a huge attraction to the region. There is a lot of people who are now curious about the region, where before in our industry there was no interest. Now there is a clear interest. So I think that interest needs to be streamlined specifically into specific channels so that it allows for budgets to be brought in beyond just on the responsibility of governments, who sometimes also support, or the streaming channels, that there should be other pools of budget coming through so that they support this particular IP or the production that is happening, and then would allow it to be fruitious and to bring back a return on investment. That's what needs to happen. And hopefully that's what the infrastructure is going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years.
Great. So in this, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Carolina, so I just wanted to pick up that point because I feel this is very important, because you talked about the ROI of kids content, and you know, I just want to highlight also, it's from my vantage point here from Europe, how the perspective on kids content as being an essential part of an offer of a streaming platform or broadcaster has really changed, and that's probably due to the fact that kids content is obviously specific. It's not the one that's getting the most views, because obviously there's an age group that's smaller, but it's very important to have a good kids section if you want to be a streaming platform or a platform that, you know, that brings value to the whole family, because kids are decision makers in the household. So kids are very important. So if kids watch something, that streaming service will not get canceled. No, that's for sure. So you don't want to go through that. So that's, and they're very loyal viewers. So households with kids watch more streaming platform. That's what some studies, what we've seen from research. And they are very loyal. So they keep watching the stuff. They don't mind watching it once or twice or 3 times. They know what they're looking for, and if they like a show, they keep watching it. And then in terms of the ROI, also platforms are realizing that there's always new customers or viewers, not customers, viewers coming, because people, kids are obviously they're going through, they're becoming older, they're interested in new shows, but then there's new kids coming to watch that show that's probably more your age group. So what Abdul just said is I think super important, that there's a different economics to it, right? It's like animation shows have a much longer shelf life. So I think it's really worth looking into and developing something that's specific to a region and that tailors the needs, because you should apply a couple of other criteria to why you want to invest into kids content. And I think, you know, if you want to be something, you want to be a good kids platform, you need to have a good offer, you need to have some highlight shows, you need to have good shows that come from good libraries. So I just want to advertise it. And from really the last 12 months have been very interesting to see for us here in Europe, where the interest in the section, where do we get more growth? How do we keep viewers loyal? They realize it's so important to have also a really good kids section. And maybe if you will let me make this one point, it's also important, it's also a point of differentiation. Natalie talked about social media and, you know, all these bigger other platforms where you can find content that's probably animated content or content for younger viewers, but not all of that is really good, or maybe a lot of it is actually not really good, especially if you look look at younger kids. So as a point of differentiation for a broadcaster, for a streaming platform to say, look, you can come to us for the parents, your kids are really safe. They have a safe space here watching our kids' content. It's not, sorry, YouTube, but there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that's not very positive, that is not value driven. So all of this stuff can be tailored and made well. And it's really a point of differentiation and marketing and something where you can make a difference. So I just want to, because it's all interconnected, as Natalie said, there's always a lot of factors. But I think these are very important when you look at how you should look at kids' content.
Yeah, as a mom of two little ones, I can attest to the fact that they do watch the same show many, many times, and you have to get used to it. So speaking of kids and watching these platforms, I do have a question from the audience for Natalie. So in the digital age, how has the accessibility of kids' content, as Bernd said, changed, and how does it impact children's viewing habits?
Oh, okay. So that's all right. So basically, children today have much easier access to more content that is not technically regulated, correct? Because of the existence of web-based platforms and social media platforms. And I don't want to highlight the names of these platforms simply because I think that this content is just beyond their control even. I'll be very honest with you, even they can't control the kind of content that is really circulating on their own platforms, as big as they are, and as much as algorithmically they try to, it just doesn't work, right? There is always going to be that slip of content that is probably, as a parent, I wouldn't allow my child to watch, but my child is actually watching. All right. So the penetration of digital content today is definitely very strong. Kids have very strong access to it. And based on that, one has to make that realization. Today, as content creators, we have to accept it. It's not something that we need to sort of deviate from or simply say it does not exist and we're going to do something better and kids are going to be watching what we're doing. No. Kids will watch what attracts them the most. And right now, the people who have a sort of forefront in the pole position in the race are these particular platforms. Now, what do we do as content creators? We have to create that content that actually alludes to the same type of format, to the same type of feel, to the same type of nuances that kids are actually getting attracted to. So in simple terms, right? Research have found that a lot of children spend a lot of times on very short segments that are predominantly driven by repetition. That's for the younger age group, right? So surprise eggs that open up into toys, this kind of stuff. And they keep watching it and watching it and watching it and again and again and again and again, gaining no value except the interest and the intrigue that it allows them on screen. Camouflage that into something that is more wholesome and that is more valuable and pick it up as actually make an IP out of it and make it more relatable to your audience, you might just have a better chance of getting the attraction and pulling them off of that particular platform or particular channel onto yours. And that's where it starts playing the right kind of game. Because if you don't do that, if you try to force feed children something that they're not interested in, the chances are that they will not relate. Otherwise, you need to go with something that is recognizable, an IP that they know, that they've heard of, that they've seen maybe in their books, or they've, listened to in a music track, and develop that into something that they would like to see more. So the digital world is what it is. And as much as we say children are spending a lot of time on it, so are we as adults. Only difference is we kind of take autonomy on and responsibility on our decisions, whereas they are too young to do that. So we need to try and support that by creating the content on that platform that they actually will end up navigating towards and spending time on. Having said this, I would like to add one point to what Bernd has just said. Content adaptation from the international markets has always been a unique trend to the Middle East. I myself, I'm sure Abdelaziz will also agree with me. We grew up with this kind of content that came either from the Far East, from Japan, for example, or from Korea, or content that came from Europe, And specifically from Europe, I would say there was quite a bit of content. We grew up with that. Right now, kids have that, but we need something else that we've not had for too long, and that is originals. Things that are created and handmade and tailor-made for audiences in the Middle East, with the chance that they actually might attract a bigger global audience. I think this is something that is a very necessary thing, because if you look at the West, if you look at Europe, or you look even at the East, they all have their unique originals that cater to the needs of their children, that by default go global. We need to do the same. We need to create content that works with our kids and that are so good that they can go global. I'm not saying no to adapted and localized and dubbed content. That is important. You need to fill the grid at the end of the day. But the truth of the matter is you need successful originals to make a real difference in the market and to make a real return on investment. And I think this is what Abdulaziz has already started with the show that they've created with Shahid. So kudos to you guys for having been able to do that. So, and hopefully it will be more of this coming through, because we need that in the Middle East more than anything else.
Yes, Abdul, would you like to talk about this show that Natalie just mentioned?
Yeah, I think she's referring to Nairat. This is a show that we have produced. Took us around 3 years, and this is also one of the main I would say elements of the structure of the market over here, because streamers or TV channels, they will not wait for you for 2 to 3 years, but this is the average amount of time it takes to produce something. So the only other way of doing it is investing, and investing is very risky, because we today have global competition. Back in the day when I was a kid, we had around an hour of kids content, and we have to see whatever is presented to us. It's like you in the house, your parents give you the food and you have to accept whatever is in the table. But now actually kids have unlimited amount of choices. They can swipe us in a second. So we work for a year and they can swipe us like that. So the competition is by nature is global. And when I say competition, I don't mean just the quality of the image, because this is also a misconception. People tend to evaluate content with the quality of the image. It's like having a single frame and saying, is this a good quality content or a bad quality content? But actually the quality is much deeper than that. It's like you can't judge a burger by just seeing the plate. Am I hungry, or all of my references is food related? So so you have to see the ingredient itself, the story, the voiceover, the music, the flow, the direction of the story. We had a very interesting example where in one of our shows we produced 14 episodes. 10 of them were with a director, and the other 4 with other directors. It was amazing to see the different styles, different outputs, although they were all of them utilizing the same team, the same animators, the same compositors, but just with the change of the director, the output changed. Actually, the style of the narration is changed, and you can see the effect of that. So to answer your question, we need originals. We need original content. The challenge is how can we invest in this? How can we take risk? And how can the streaming and the TV ecosystem in the MENA region evolve to nurture that? To nurture, yeah, this is the right word. Because otherwise, it's always cheaper to take global content and dub it and distribute it. The content is available, but then where is the voice of the region? We have seen the results. So for our show, it was on the top 10 on Shahid on the kids, not just in Saudi, in a lot of the countries of the region. It reached number 2, number 3, surpassing global IPs and giants, because kids like to see themselves in the content they watch. It's like anybody else, any consumer would like to see themselves in the content they watch.
Yeah.
So speaking of the voice of the region that you just mentioned, I do have a question from the audience that asks, how do cultural and regional differences influence the demand for kids content?
The cultural differences within the MENA region itself, how does it Okay. Well, what we need to focus on is not the differences, but the commonality. Okay. And thank God for the fact that we have a lot of things in common across almost, I would say, there's almost 20 countries that are Arab speaking and that can actually join in the same set of values. So rather than trying to create something that uniquely stands relevant to only one of those countries, we could pretty much find a commonality, and it's not very hard to do. By the way, there are, I mean, Bernd already mentioned a couple of them, you know, friendship, right? Being sort of like driven by pride and passion and heroism and all these things. These are things that we very much carry close to our hearts in the Middle East. Family value is a big thing. That's why when you look at shows that are driven, even if animated, that are driven to attract a family setup, like mom and dad are watching along with their children, chances are your ROIs are going to be also much better, because family is a very strong structure and remains a solid structure in the Middle East. And therefore, that's something to celebrate. That's something to build on. And that's something to definitely highlight. So I wouldn't focus on our differences. I would focus on what is common between us and create IPs that touches on those commonalities, and then bring all this audience of almost, you know, the population being well over 250 million people who speak the language, to actually join and to watch, and then hopefully a ripple effect onto the rest of the world. So I think that there's a lot of positives that we share, that we could share with the world, that our stories can tell. And let's just not forget, the Middle East carries thousands of years of civilization, of history, of stories that are untold, and characters that have probably some of them been told, but not in the right way, and have a chance to be retold in the way they should be told. So there's a lot of things that we can work with. So I think it's a very exciting time for the Middle East on so many levels.
Yeah. So touching on what you just said about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just touching on that point, and I think it's a very good point that Natalie, obviously we're not based in the region, we're international, but what we're trying is really looking for communalities that work really across regions and that work well in your region in particular, and that, you know, we can market too. And I think there are a lot of things we can take from the discussions we have to influence our development for new projects that will then work internationally. We have always an international mindset, and for kids content, speaking about return on investment, I think it's important that it works internationally, but we want to make something that's why I like Natalie's point, something that where we focus on the values that are wholesome, right, that are working, I think for a lot of for everybody basically, right? And I also want to touch upon the point of quality content. I also think that's also very key for content that's already existing from libraries, and versus content that's out there on platforms, on social media. It's quality, it's storytelling, right? Is it something that people have, authors that really pay attention to what's important, how you tell a story, what kind of, like how you within those stories provide you know, the message that you want to get across. So it's really taken care of with a lot of, or really done with a lot of care, and with very skilled people, very experienced people, and very great creators who've created that kind of content. I think it's really important, given there's so much content out there, that this oftentimes in our experience gets lost, and this is something really try to advertise, not to advertise it itself, but really to differentiate in the marketplace. And I think that's all what my colleagues here on the panel are doing as well. So I think we share the same mindset here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sorry, go ahead. It's okay.
To build upon what he was saying, quality for us is retention. This is how we measure quality content. So we actually do test screening. We bring kids on board, and we study that. Like, retention today is key. As I said, previously it wasn't that important because kids will watch whatever you serve them. Now, with kids have the choice, even smaller kids, even 3-4 years old kids now, they choose what type of content they watch. So if the content can retain kids till the last minute, till the last second of it, then it's a quality content, regardless of the image of the quality of the image itself.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, if you want to put it in a nutshell, what you're creating is basically an opportunity for young audiences of the Middle East to be introduced to content that caters to different age groups. You've got your preschool, which is 3 to 6. You've got your young kids, which is 6 to 11. And then you've got your tweens, who are 11 to 13, right? And to each one of those, more or less, there are a category of genres and trends that they would actually get attached to. How do you work this? You can go 3 ways, right? You can go on original, you can go on co-pros, and you can go on dubbed, adapted, localized, whatever you want. I think a healthy mix, because that would mean a healthy mix of budgets, a healthy mix of distribution, a healthy mix of marketing, and the healthy mix of retention is what needs to happen. Now, it's not to say that these categories do not exist. Some, obviously, the localized, dubbed are more the more available ones at this stage, and the other 2 being at a lesser stage. Historically, we've done 3 co-productions with international networks, and the results have been very good. And we saw retention, we saw audiences engaging, but we worked very closely on the co-production. We made sure that the stories being told, the characters being portrayed would be relevant to the Middle East as much as the co-producing partners that were involved back then. So there is a lot of things that can work. The only issue is which one works best. And then to help and cater to what Abdelaziz was saying, that it's the networks who are carrying that risk solely, I think there needs to be an open invitation to the international market to think of this market as a very, very buoyant market, with huge potential, so that distributors, toy companies, financiers, and different entities come on board and start pooling in to that potential content that could be created and then obviously distributed.
So speaking on original content production, I know the 3 of you mentioned how known IPs are oftentimes a safer bet for producers or investors because they already have an audience and a fan base. But I do believe it's very important to have original productions in this day and age when IPs are oftentimes used over and over again, and they lack originality and they lack the attraction power that we've been talking about. This is a question for all 3 of you. Would you encourage international players to invest in the MENA region in original content, in new IPs? And why do you think it's important to have these types of productions?
Who's going to jump in?
Please.
I think it would be a lost opportunity for international companies not to consider this, right? Especially right now. What originals are IPs, actually, that have not been given the right opportunity to become content that is actually watchable by a young audience, right? So when we speak of an IP comes in different formats, right? It could be a character in books, and it could be, like I said, music, it could be a song, could be different things. And the way you package them and the way you present them for a potential sort of like large distribution and large impact on audiences is where the difference happens. So I think that there is a lot of these IPs that are just waiting to be reaped and to benefit the markets. And I think that there's definitely an opportunity. I'm not saying that, you know, every international player in the industry could, you know, sort of like gain that advantage immediately, right? But there's definitely going to be risk involved. There's definitely patience that needs to be involved. And there's definitely collaboration that needs to be invited, right? So at the end of the day, it should be IP that is produced by the MENA region. And it should be led by people from the MENA region. So the idea is to try and do that, but to also invite the international market to see the international potential. because that can happen, like it has happened with all various countries around the world for the last 50, 70 years since animation started. So I definitely think that there's room for this for the Middle East, and I definitely think that international players should start considering this.
I have here 2 points. The first is every IP used to be an original at one point. So if we don't invent new originals, we'll run out of IPs. So and let's think of the most popular kids IPs nowadays. Some of them are relatively new. For example, Bluey. Everybody is blown out by Bluey, which is a relatively very new IP and young. So there has to be a creative risk over here. So because people have some sort of expectations that every piece of content has to be a hit. This is not how it works. Even in the cinema market, for example, major studios release 10 movies and they know that 1 or 2 will be hits and the others will be mediocre. So this is something that there's no formula for creating content. It's not like creating a car or something that you have a specific formula, and if you go by it, you can produce a winning car. So there has to be a creative risk over here. The region, as Natalie was saying, is untapped. So there's a lot of stories here to be used. We have people are enjoying stories from all over the world. We're enjoying stories from Japan, from Europe, from India, from the US, from literally all parts of the world. Like Masha and the Beer is Russian. A lot of people don't know that Masha and the Beer is one of the most successful IPs in our region. It comes from Russia. So you can expect content coming from everywhere. So why not exporting our stories and these news voices to our kids first, and then to new markets. And collaboration is key also. So as Natalie was saying, so we need to pour resources here, because to divide this creative risk I was mentioning, studios need to collaborate, and international investors need to share the risk with different parties, so we can try things together.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of the international market, yeah, no, go ahead.
Maybe just my thoughts on that. You know, I have like 2 or 3 thoughts on this. So one is, we as a company, as Your Family Entertainment, work together with cartoon studios. You know, our clear goal is to expand our presence in the region, and I would love to get more into discussions with my colleagues here on the panel and with creatives in the region. So maybe we can help them if there is an attract to build or develop a content in the region, where we can be of help to support it with an international audience, or well, pre-sell to international markets through our networks. That could be an interesting angle that I would love to explore more. I agree that there's a lot of great stories from your region that also are attractive to international markets. You know, one of our flagship IP is a Fix and Foxy, which is also the name of our pay TV channel, but a very rich, strong IP with a long heritage. One of their first comic strips was really based with where they were in your region, and going through adventures there, which is showing that, you know, how attractive the region is, and there's so many stories to tell from that. So that's like one. I'd love to work with local creators, production companies, or platforms to bring it to international markets. I think I want to add to this that, you know, we always have to keep in mind the way we look at it. It needs to be, you know, make good business sense. So if there's something to be developed, I think it's important and essential that you have strong partners from the region who support who are the key anchors, investors in an IP, which then I think allows it, if it's done well, to also travel and be sold internationally. And would love to do more on this. Sorry.
Just to tell you, Bernd, that with regards to that, you just said a key element word for the commercial side of it. So pre-sale would be a very supportive part to creating the budget that is needed to produce great content out of the region. So our financiers are ready to invest. There is no, there are people who want to do it. The only thing is they cannot invest the entire amount. They need to feel that their risk is being shared by other potential companies, such as distributors that are uniquely strong in the particular market, alongside to other potential entities coming on board. And then the risk is definitely distributed, and therefore the encouragement and the actual want and desire to make the production happen becomes a reality. So we've never discussed historically original IPs out of the Middle East for potential pre-sale, because there was no hunger or appetite for that from distributors on an international level. Now there is. So now, whether it's our studio or Abdelaziz studio or many other studios that are developing, creating IPs here, if you're ready to listen, we're ready to pitch. So, and the part and the financiers are available. They just don't want to be the only one taking the risk. That's it. So I think that for that reason, I think that's why the potential is now bigger.
Yeah, so I suggest we continue talking, and I can bring in our expertise, our sales expertise, our networks, and also our colleagues from Hollywood, right, who have networks and creative access, and obviously access to broadcasters, platforms. So let's definitely continue that. I also wanted to bring in the other angle, which, from our point of view, we also thought about, we own a lot of IP and characters that lend itself to, different environments, different storytelling, but that bring a certain kind of popularity and build an audience. And in previous conversations, we thought about, is there a way to bring this IP to a region, then think about more, how new stories can be created with a bit of maybe Middle East approach in mind, where we can, collaborate on, we bring IP, other people bring stories and ideas and production to the table. That was also the other way around, basically, to encourage a more local content requirement.
That's definitely possible, because it has been happening for the longest time. The only thing is that there has been a bit of a loss in terms of adaptation that's truly uniquely Middle Eastern in that sense. Back in the 80s and the 90s, I'll give you an example, the Strumps, right? We all grew up with them, and they resonate with us to this day, even as adults. For the younger kids, if something similar or from your library you feel could make that kind of impact, but is given a proper adaptation and a proper localization, you'd be surprised on how successful it can be. And I think, for example, Masha and the Bear did that very well, that they were able to really adapt themselves to the region in such a way. They had some common values in that story, in their stories and in the characters that they portrayed. And then when they adapted them into, obviously, the language and the music and the way that they presented the whole package of the IP, they did a good job. And I think they actually partnered here with someone who understood what the Middle East actually needed, and that's why it became a success. So that's definitely a possibility, and probably an easier one, and a much closer apple to pick.
Mm-hmm. I can say that Masha has also been a success over here in Latin America. So I think it's pretty much a universal thing for the show. So listen, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to give you all the chance to talk about the next steps and what you're working on for the next year. So if you'd like to share with us what your current projects are and what you're now working on, that'd be great. So yeah. So
for Blink Studios, we have two strong IPs in our portfolio that have been developed and are ready for pitching. One is coming out with an IP that is recognized for over 100 years, and we have readapted it, remodeled it, and recreated it so that it's relevant to the region here as much as it will be internationally. We're going on to co-production deals with that. So hopefully something will materialize very soon on that particular IP. It's an animated show targeting 6 to 11. That's the basic audience and the basic sort of like approach. But in terms of the format, I can't say much at this stage because we're trying to bring in a new flavor to it. And then the second one is very uniquely for the Middle East region. It is a tween girls show. It is very much directed to tween girls in the Middle East region. And it is about presenting a positive role modeling that is relatable and very sort of like close at heart to our girls here in the region. And it is not animation alone. It is live action mixed with animation. It's got a double-edged sword, and hopefully it will work for the tween age, which is 11 to 14. That's what we're focusing on and what we're going to be promoting in the next couple of months.
Good. Thank you for sharing. And Abdulaziz, how about you?
For us in Ziz Animation, before talking about our new things, I would like to also highlight the latest thing that Natalie mentioned, Nairat. It's on Shahid. Go watch it if you haven't. We're so proud of it. We're so proud of the production, of how it turned out, and of the feedback. The kids and the parents are sending us very positive messages about it. And we thank Shahid for picking it up, because as a leading streaming platform in the region, they have done great work in uplifting the supply of original kids content. So this is our latest. It has been released this year. For next year, we have two major IPs that we have been working on now for years. The first one is for preschoolers. I can't tell much about it. It will be ready later next year. But the first one actually is this guy here. He's called As-Saddad. And the Saddad is a superhero story directed towards tweens, but boys, not like Blink's one for girls. So it's for tween boys. It's a very exciting concept. It's like a local manga or a local anime style, where there is some action adventure happening, and it's a very exciting IP that we have been working on for years now. This should be ready early next year.
Good. I hope, I wish you all the best, all the success with your shows. Well, lastly, Bernd, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, so, for us not being based in the region, we have a clear commitment and strategy to improve and increase our presence in your region. So, and then in the coming months, we want to be present at, the key shows, key conferences, and available in your region. So, just personally, please reach out if you heard anything that you liked, where we can help you, assist you. Would be happy to, to talk, to chat, and to be in touch. Please connect me on LinkedIn or go through DICM here. And generally, I mean, what we are really on, we have 2 or 3 things we would love to do. So one is we'd love to help platforms, broadcasters, streaming platforms, VOD on everything you need to help build, help you build kids offerings, kids content platforms based on the finished product, on the series and shows that we have on offer. So we have a lot of good storytelling, a lot of great shows, science, adventure, everything I've mentioned before that I think works really well in your region. That's been tested with bigger partners like NBC. Or Etisalat. So we'd be happy to help you build a good kids offer in your region. We also want to introduce a couple of new shows that are ready made, like Superhero Kindergarten, which is inspired and produced by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself. It's a new show, really fun, about kids in school, in kindergarten with superpowers. It's really nice, great values. I think you'd love that show. that's been produced by our colleagues in the US. It's a really nice show. I think we're now have Arabic versions available. It would also be a premiere show. We have also another show called Shaq's Garage, based on the basketball hero Shaquille O'Neal. But the story is not more about it's more about his cars and his speaking cars. It's an animation show. Also, great values, great storytelling, really fun and entertaining to watch. At the same time, really nice and sweet. We also would love to expand our broadcasting channel operations. As I've introduced, showed the quick clip. We have a pay TV channel called Pix and Proxy. It's a really nice animation only or kids animation content, no advertising. Very nice channel which we also refresh and have really great content on it. Would love to bring that even more to the region. And then, we have a couple of developments in place together with our partners. We're working on a redevelopment of our key IP, Fix and Foxy, which is a heritage great IP based on comic strips out of Germany, but I think will be very attractive to your region as well. And my colleagues in Cartoon Studios working on, let's say, higher end gaming shows or esports shows for a bit of an older audience, or really sweet gaming shows which you could produce for your region, which are live action, live gameplay, but in a very nice, sweet kind of way, which we'd be happy to show as well. That was my quick summary.
That's great. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. I believe that's it for the time today. Thank you everyone for attending, and a special thank you to Natalie, Bernd, and Abdulaziz for joining today. In case anybody didn't watch the full session, a recording of the webinar will be published on the DICM.ae website by next week. The next webinar will be Fast in MENA Part 1, which will stream live on October 4th. Just a reminder for anyone who has not registered yet, the e-Ramadan content market is happening from the 25th to the 26th of October, and DICM will be taking place from the 22nd to the 23rd of November. For more information, you can visit their websites. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and goodbye.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.